Welcome to another lesson in the book of Ruth. We're studying The Girls Still Got It by Liz Curtis Higgs. We're about to get to the good part, I would say. Well, it's all good, but remember when you were growing up and one of your friends had a date and you'd say, when they got back, did he kiss you? You know, those kind of things. So we're about to get to the kissing part. The Lord doesn't really record the kissing part for us, but we're assuming it was there. Anyway, they're getting closer and closer to each other, Boaz and Ruth. You remember at the end of the last lesson, he had given her do's and don'ts. He sounded like do's and don'ts. He sounded like a boss. Do you remember that? You know, don't go to glean in another field. Do come here and stay fast by my maidens and things like that. So we're just tying up the end of chapter 2. I want to read this to you because we were talking about last week when we left off that Ruth was to stay fast by his maidens, you know, so that was a paid position. She has gone from a total stranger from a foreign country to being like one of his employees. Wow, what is happening? And it's happening so fast. But I'm going to read you just this part to catch us up to where we are. It's just a couple of paragraphs or so from the book, The Girls Still Got It. In less than a day, Ruth has gone from foreign immigrant to trusted employee. This would be like moving, let's say, to Melbourne, Australia, with no money in your purse and no job prospects. The minute you arrive, jet-lagged and starving, you begin picking up trash at the Flinders Street railway station, hoping to find a few coins among the discarded coffee cups. Suddenly, the CEO walks up and says, "Miss, I'd like you to start working for our railway division immediately. The hours are 10 to 6, the benefits are excellent, and our office staff will gladly arrange for your visa and help you get settled." Crazy, right? Could never happen. But that's exactly what happened to Ruth. It's a miracle and nothing short of it. It's also how God welcomes us into his family. He doesn't make us fill out a stack of forms or suffer through a probationary period. Once we belong to him, we're in. Not because of our goodness or worthiness, but because of his. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Lord. We can never say it enough. Ruth's eyes widen, trying to absorb this landowner's generous offer. Before she can respond, Boaz presses on with specific instructions. And that's kind of where we left off last week. We're going to pick up there at verse 9. I will say this as we get started. Today is March 1st. When I'm recording this, it's about the time of barley harvest, what it would have been then in Ruth's time. So I thought, I was curious. I wanted to know what the temperature would be like. So I looked it up. In the daytime, 57 to 68 degrees. Doesn't that sound about perfect? And at night, 46 degrees to 50 degrees. Like, life doesn't get any better than that. It's just right in the middle, and it's so beautiful and warm. So the weather that we are feeling today, well, where we are, maybe where you are too, is about like that, exactly how it would have been when Ruth would have been out in the field. So interesting. The other thing that came to my mind before I get started here, random thoughts, is not only does King David end up in Ruth's lineage, because Jesus was called the Son of David, the Messiah ended up in her lineage as well. Just let that soak in for just a minute, which we know we're bought by his blood and we're part of his family as well. But that's just kind of amazing. And a foreigner, you know, just like Boaz's mother Rahab was. Isn't God just so good to us? Anyway, so many thoughts right there. The other thing that I did notice when I was studying is most of Israelite customs that we know come from the book of Ruth more than any other Old Testament book. And it's true. We see their way of life, their interaction, even with their foreign neighbors. We see the kinsman redeemer, like so much how that practicality plays out spiritually as well. So interesting. So I tell you what I'm going to do is, let's back up. Excuse me, I gave you the wrong verse a minute ago. Verse 18 is where we're starting for this, and the name of this lesson is "Well, Bless His Strong and Wealthy Self," talking about Boaz, of course. And verse 18, I tell you what, I'm going to back up 1 second to verse 17. So she gleaned in the field until even, and beat out that she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. She beat it out. So not only last week when we left off, not only had she been stooping and picking it up and putting it in her little sack thing, you know, like the baby carrying kind of little stretchy thing, or that's just kind of how I picture it. not only had she been doing all that, when she finished, she beat it out. And this is what it came to. I was curious how much that would have weighed, because after she had bent and picked up all day, then beat it out, and then she had to carry it over rugged terrain. I cannot even tell you how rugged the terrain is in Bethlehem. You can hardly walk on it, and that's this many thousand years later. But it would come to 22 liters, 5.5 gallons, weighing about 50 pounds. 50 pounds, so we're talking about a big bag of dog food. Have you ever gotten one of those from Walmart? They're hard to get from the car to the house. Ruth is going to carry that all the way back to Naomi. Like, is she going to sling that over her shoulder in a knapsack? How is that even going to happen? Anyway, just pointing that out as we pick up with verse 18. And it says this, and she took it up and went into the city, walking, like we were talking about. And her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned, and she brought forth and gave to her that she had reserved after she was sufficed. So remember, back up in verse 14 of chapter 2, that's when Boaz had offered for her to come and eat with his maidens, and to dip, and with him, and to dip in the vinegar and things, like dip in the bowl. So she had been sufficed. So when she gets home, she's going to give Naomi, she had been sufficed, she's going to give to her. But so the good news is, though, as she starts out headed back to Naomi, the good news is that she has so much to bring home. It could feed them possibly up to a month. The bad news is she is carrying it, like we said, some impressive upper body strength, because as you know, we as women do not have the same upper body strength as men. It might be good for people these days, with all the things going on in our society, to acknowledge that. So she brought forth and gave to her that she had reserved after she was sufficed. Could you almost picture, don't you know, Ruth was so glad to bring it home to Naomi. It would be kind of like, close your eyes, I have a surprise for you. That's kind of how we would do it. If we were bringing home something and we wanted it to be a big deal, what we were doing. But verse 19 says this, and her mother-in-law said unto her, where hast thou gleaned today? Didn't you think, like I did, that she must have known, like she just turned her loose in a foreign country and didn't know where she was going, but no cell phones or anything like that. Where hast thou gleaned today, and where wroughtest thou? Blessed be he that did take knowledge of thee. So she had gone out full, she came back empty, but the Lord is filling her up again. And she asked twice before Ruth even has a chance to answer her. It's like a little child. It'd be like for us, our young children saying, mama, mama, mama. And before we could even get an answer out, they're continuing to say, mama, mama, mama. And you would think somebody would have stopped by to tell Naomi where Ruth was. Like, it was a small town and they were talking. So you would think that Naomi would already have known that. Verse 19, and she showed her mother-in-law with whom she had wrought, and said, the man's name whom I wrought today is Boaz. We're women. We like details. They say men are headliners. We're fine print. There had been so many things that Ruth had experienced that day, but she jumped right to the man's name who had helped her. Like, why didn't she tell her about the farm workers and the maidens and the man who oversaw all of them and, stood by the big rock with, his expensive money bag hanging over his shoulder? But she goes right to the one, the Lord of the harvest there. And notice that she didn't say the man she had worked for, but the man she had worked with. There's a difference. If you've ever worked out, there's a difference in working for somebody and working with somebody. And we know that. Boaz got nothing out of the deal except the pleasure of her company. I want to stop just right there for just a moment and reflect on that. I'll say, first of all, women should realize that they have a lot to offer. She was allowed to work alongside him and what was close to his heart. It's the same thing that God allows us to do. A pleasure to work with the Lord is what we are doing. But do you remember too, talking about women having a lot to offer, Adam was put in the garden to tend it and to name the animals. And you recall that Eve was made to keep him company. It's not good for a man to be alone. I'll make him a help meet for him. Women have a lot to offer. God's not looking for a couch potato, just like we aren't looking for couch potatoes either as women and men. But the other references that come to my mind about the pleasure of her, all he got out of it was the pleasure of her company. Did you know there are two great verses in the Bible, Psalm 149 verse 4, the Lord taketh pleasure in his people. What is he getting out of it? He just asked for the pleasure of our company. I love that. And Revelation 4 and 4:11, for thy pleasure we are and were created, just for the pleasure of the Lord. That's what he's getting out of it. If we can pull ourselves together and work for him. So when Ruth gives Naomi Boaz's name, it's kind of like, ta-da, look what I've done. I can almost sense it like, can you believe this is where I am? Because I'm sure Boaz was well known, and Naomi would have known the connection, which we see later that she does. In verse 20, and Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, blessed be he of the Lord, who hath not left off his kindness to the living and to the dead. Isn't that interesting? Not left off his kindness to the dead. It is true. Even after someone passes on, God continues in so many ways to take care of the dead's family. As I know personally myself, kindness to the dead is just an interesting wording there to me. At that moment, everything changes for Naomi. No more whining, bitterness, sorrow, self-pity. Her faith has been fully restored. The Lord had guided her to their near kinsman. Naomi doubts no longer. She sees, she believes, and we're reminded that we walk by faith, not by sight. It's so good to see, but we don't always get to do that. We walk by faith, not by sight. But isn't it wonderful when God allows us to see what he's doing? Sometimes we can see that. So she believes, she sees, she believes because she sees. But I'm reminded in John 20:29, blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed. And that would be us. Jesus said that to Thomas. But that would be us too. We've never seen him, but yet we believe. So good. Remember that without faith, it is impossible to please him. Hebrews 11:6. That's what we're doing. We're just living by faith. And we put faith in all kinds of things. Have you ever gotten on an elevator and thought, do I trust this thing to go up or down? If you've ever seen some type of scary anything where an elevator collapses, it's no good. We had in Atlanta, there's Weston Peachtree Plaza, and it's got just a glass round elevator that goes up the side of the building. I think it's 72 floors. And the crazy thing is, trusting that thing, I loved the view. And it wasn't falling down that elevator shaft that worried me. I was always afraid it would go right up the top and somebody forgot to stop it, and then we're over the top and out into the streets of Atlanta. That's crazy, but we put faith and trust in all kinds of things. And maybe that's why sometimes it's hard to put faith where we need to put it in the Lord. I've always said men don't doubt their salvation so much. It seems like it's always women. And I think if we had a coupon, we would go into heaven saying, look what I have. I have a coupon. I can come in. It's that faith thing. We have nothing to hold on to. It's totally invisible, and we're just hanging on to it. Faith, it's something. My husband used to say, faith gets harder as you get older because you have to trust the Lord for bigger things. And that's probably true. Remember when you were young, maybe in school, and you just needed to trust him to help you find your number 2 pencil that you needed for your achievement test, something like that. We're asking for bigger things now, so it does require more faith as we get older. But as this begins to happen here, we can almost see the wrinkles vanish from Naomi's face. It's kind of like just breathing a sigh of relief that everything's going to work out. And it probably does change the appearance of our faith when we come to that moment. No more of that antioxidant, anti-aging, all of the things that we have in our bathroom vanity. Verse 20 says this, and Naomi said unto her, the man is near of kin unto us. See, she knew him. She knew Boaz, one of our next kinsmen. Kinsman means near. Redeemer means buys back. So it's a near kin who buys back, which is exactly what Jesus did for us. There's a story told of a little boy who had taken wood and whittled out a little boat. He lived on a lake, and he tied a string to that boat. Once he finished it, it would float. It's pretty amazing to me that a little boy can make a boat that would float, but I think wood floats anyway. Anyway, he tied that string to it, and every day he would go out to the lake, and he would push that boat way out into the lake and then use that string, pulling it back to him. Well, one day the string slipped from his hand, and the boat went out to sea or wherever it took it. Well, just a few days after that, he was walking down the street of his town, and in the window of a shop, he saw his boat displayed there. He went in and talked to the man who owned the business, and he said, that little boat in the window is mine. I made it. And the proprietor said, well, I bought it, and so now it's mine. If you would like it, you'll have to pay for it. Well, the little boy was disheartened. He didn't have money, but he went back home and started saving. And when he had enough money, he went back to the shop and he bought the boat that he had made. And he held it to him. He said, "You're twice mine. I created you and I bought you. I made you and I bought you." And isn't that just like the Lord? He made us and then he bought us back. We were his by his own volition in creating us, but he paid the price to buy us back. Such a great story. Anyway, a kinsman redeemer is no ordinary role. By using that phrase, Naomi is telling Ruth that this landowner not only will take care of them, but will redeem them as well. Protect them, bring them into the fold. It's kind of a kinsman redeemer did a lot of the business transactions back then. The kinsman redeemer would pay Naomi and Ruth's bills and take care of legal things for them and protect them, avenge them of an adversary, things like that. Can you imagine one of your relatives running to your rescue like that? Maybe we all have someone in our family like that, paying off your mortgage. Wouldn't you love that? Helping you out of all your troubles. If you're thinking, I want someone like that in my life, that's exactly what God is doing in your life. In my life. The story of Ruth is a reminder that we do have one, and he knows and handles our responsibilities and needs flawlessly. Verse 21 says, "And Ruth the Moabitess said," where did that come from? Here she is in a new land with a new name, new everything, and she's still being referred to as the Moabitess, the woman from the pagan country. But remember, Rahab was the same. All the way over in Hebrews, Rahab is spoken of in the 8th chapter as Rahab the harlot. So that name stuck with her. The truth is, however good or bad others perceive us to be, we are all lost without the amazing grace of the Lord. Yeah, even if that sticks with us, we're still new creatures, and God recognizes that, which is the most important. Referring to her history reminds us again that she is a new woman, because we're kind of surprised to see that wording there in Ruth the Moabitess. Just like we're new creatures, but we're still known by all of our old names. But he's going to give us a new one. So many thoughts there. I don't know if I should bring this up or not, but do you remember the children's movie Beauty and the Beast? I know some people have issues with that, but back in the day, I will say some people are beautiful and some are a little more beast-like, a little meaner. But back in the day, before they're changing everything now, I think they're changing Beauty and the Beast too, but there was a little song in it years ago, 20 years ago or more. There may be something there that wasn't there before. And it just reminds us that there's something in us now that wasn't there before the Lord came to us. So we think, what did Boaz see in Ruth? What did God see in us? Some people say, why would God choose Judas? Why would God choose any of us? It's just his mercy and his grace. So amazing. Verse 21, back to that. He said unto me also, thou shalt keep fast by my young men until they have ended all my harvest. In spite of her Moabite background, in spite of her poverty, in spite of her travel-worn clothing, Boaz chatted with Ruth personally. Don't miss the significance. Christ does the same for us. Regardless of where we've come from, where we've been, what we've done, he chooses us and has a personal relationship with us. Some people use his name easily. It's about the relationship, and a lot of people miss that. I am reminded on this verse, I will say this. Ruth tells Naomi, he said unto me, keep fast by my young man. Actually, he said, don't go near the young men. I've told them not to touch you. It was more like that. But anyway, she goes quickly to the fact that he's looking out for her. That's the point there, that Boaz is looking out for Ruth. Verse 22, and Naomi said unto Ruth, her daughter-in-law, it is good, my daughter, that thou go out with his maidens, that they meet thee not in any other field. Naomi refers to Ruth as her daughter-in-law. So she's embracing that family connection. She's all that Naomi has left, and she's going to embrace that. So Ruth is going to serve as a daughter-in-law and as a daughter to Ruth. Keep in mind that Naomi had 2 sons. She doesn't have those anymore. The daughter she never had, Ruth is going to be that, but she's also her daughter-in-law. God is doing a mighty work in both women's lives by gently and firmly directing their steps. We haven't seen Naomi this tender up to this point, remember? when she was telling them back at the beginning of the book, go back, shub, that word we talked about there in that lesson. There's an old love song from back in the 80s, maybe, I'm guessing. It's hard to believe how many years ago how many decades ago that's been. But these are just the chorus, I think maybe what this is to that song. It's all I remember. All roads have led me to this life, this love I share with you. And though the road was never smooth, life has made me someone who could be the right someone for you. So all the things that happen in our lives, sometimes they just lead us to what God has for us. Have you ever heard that? Everything happening in your life is preparing you for what's ahead. But in class, in person, we were talking about that. Even the people that we marry, if we had met them years earlier, we may not have been interested. It's because that was the person all along, which is an amazing thought to think about. It just wasn't the right timing. So God's timing is as important as his person, and he just has things in our life that lead us to the person that he has for us. Naomi has already seen Boaz's generosity. Imagine what it might be by harvest's end. Naomi wants Ruth to stay close by the maidens and by Boaz. That's what Naomi wants. She is not simply protecting Ruth from violence. She's setting her apart for Boaz. Naomi glimpses what's coming and how this is going to play out. Though Ruth is a widow and therefore not a virgin, she has not borne a child. Her womb is untried. So, like Sarah and Rebekah before her, Ruth's womb is being kept for as yet unknown purpose, perhaps even to bear a child of destiny, as one writer put that. And wouldn't the story have been different if she'd already had Moabite children? It would have been a different scenario playing out right here. It still could have worked out, well, according to God's purpose and plan, but it would have been different if it had been children born in a foreign land with foreign ideas and things like that, and then bringing a new child into that. Anyway, we see so many ways that the Lord protects and plans and orchestrates our life. I think about the flood. Imagine if Noah's sons had already had children, and no doubt the Lord had kept them from bearing. If they had had children, they would have taken them on the ark with them. But it probably would have been hard for children to be locked up in a boat for that many days with all of the animals, and trying to, Noah and his family taking care of the animals and taking care of children, while they're all closed in and can't get out in the great outdoors. Anyway, we see God's plan working out in so many ways and so many lives. If we could just see it working out in our own. Verse 23 says this: So she kept fast by the maidens of Boaz to glean unto the end of barley harvest and of wheat harvest, and dwelt with her mother-in-law. Did we just put the brakes on this relationship? Until the end of barley and wheat harvest. How long is that? It's about 6 or 7 months. It goes all the way over into the fall. Starts around the middle to end of March and goes into autumn, right after the spring rains, through the dry season, then the heat of summer, then on to fall. We have no plot between verse 23 and the first verse of chapter 1. Are they conversing, flirting, just working? We don't know. Always keep in mind that God has perfect timing. His timing is as perfect as his plan. Though it tarry, wait for it. He never comes too early or too late. He's working even when we don't see that he's working during the night while we sleep. It says he never sleeps, he never slumbers, always working. Don't you love that? God's just so good. I hope you can reflect on something that we talked about today that just sticks in your mind, of God's goodness and blessing in your life and how he's working in your life. I'm hanging on to it myself. He's doing great things, and I think time is short. I think the Lord's coming soon for us, calling us out of here. And so it just behooves us to keep thinking of him and working with him, not just for him, as we wait for him to come for us. Anyway, hope you have a good day today, good week ahead, and I'll see you in one more week. God bless you.